My name is Jasmine Bakalarz. I'm a Canadian-Argentine photographer, and I came to Warsaw to do a residency at the POLIN Museum. I'm a photographer. I have been photographing children for many years, usually portraying an important moment in childhood and exploring issues of identity, gender identity, culture, and also immigration during childhood. I began photographing beauty pageants, which were an example of a very exaggerated idea of gender ideas in North America. And then I continued to photograph different types of competitions like ballroom dancers and dog shows, and also equestrians in Argentina, and different children who immigrated and how they still connected to their roots through activities like folk dancing. I'm interested in children who are immigrants because when I was 11, I immigrated to Canada from Argentina. And in general, my family history is of exile and of becoming part of new countries and different cultures, and kind of maintaining your own identity through that change. So I'm interested in seeing how children's identity is affected by that. In Argentina, I work in the Centro Cultural de la Memoria Roldo Conti, which belongs to the Ministry of Human Rights. And it's situated in the place where there used to be a clandestine detention center during the last Argentine dictatorship in the 70s. This is important for me because I was interested in also coming to this museum, because it's a new space, just like the place where I work, where we're starting to reflect ideas of memory and education through art, and especially in the actual place where these historical moments took place. The project I proposed for the residency was to do contemporary portraits of the Jewish community in Warsaw. My project was very difficult because of all of the different types of identities of people who are in Warsaw at the moment, and obviously the history of the city. But it was a good challenge. It made the project more interesting, and the subjects very different from one another. Out of 4 of my grandparents, 3 were Polish, so I was very interested to come here and see the towns where they were from. So I always grew up with a sense of a Polish identity, but without understanding really what that meant. During my residency, I was fortunate enough to visit the towns of my grandparents, and I was able to film there and also photograph, which is connected to the idea that I had of my residency, to explore different identities of Polish Jews. Most of my work so far hasn't been personal per se, but I've always felt that the portraits that I've done of children were a self-portrait as well, of moments that I thought were important for me. And the portraits I'm doing here in Warsaw, and also the photographs that I took in the towns, of course, are a sense of a self-portrait for me, and a search for an identity also. August Sander, the German photography, is an artist that has been very important for me in terms of the research and the anthropological perspective that he had on his subjects, and the underlying idea of portraying a country and a specific state the country was in. So for me, they were important portraits, especially when I was in university learning about photography, because they had a very formal aesthetic, referencing, studio photography, but they were taken out to the streets, and which is something that I'm interested in doing with my own work. And they were portraits that gave a sense of a place in history. And I wish to do that now with the portraits that I'm doing. I want them to be a portrait of what Warsaw is like now, and what the Jewish community is experiencing now after all of these years.